The legacy and life of former First Lady Nancy Reagan today, remembering her dedication to promoting a better future for America's children and her philanthropic work, including working side by side with our next guest on charity awards dinners.
Yeah, they met many times, and joining us right now for his reflection is presidential historian Doug Wead. Doug, thanks so much. We got to get your point of view on all this.
Brian.
You've been watching the accolades come in and the reflections go out. Tell me the Nancy Reagan you knew.
Well, I wrote a blog recently, Brian, called The Political Genius of Nancy Reagan, because she understood that it takes one thing to get elected, it takes another thing to govern, and yet another to establish a legacy. And I think she understood that. Most people, what I'm missing, most journalists and mainstream media were very anti-Reagan, and their stories were slanted. Those same people were on television last night praising the Reagans, and I had to smile. I thought, that's the genius of Nancy Reagan. When she left the White House, she could have spit in their faces, but she understood that she needed academia, corporate America, and the mainstream media if she was going to protect the legacy of her husband. And that's her genius, in my opinion.
Take us back to when you first sat down and met them before they were running for the White House at a dinner at their home. What was that night like? And at the time, did you think there was any chance they were making it to the White House?
Hi, Clayton. Yeah, that was very interesting. I had just come back from Cambodia and the famine there, Pol Pot, so I was filled with those stories. And we got to talking that night about having a charity awards dinner. Why not something that honors heroes of volunteerism? But I noticed that night, Clayton, that Nancy was often in a hallway, a darkened hallway, whispering furtively with Michael Deaver. And the story in the newspapers was that John Sears, the former Nixon aide, was going to run the presidential campaign, which was imminent, and that one of the prerequisites was that Michael Deaver would be fired. Wow. So here was Deaver with Nancy, and you know, when people think of Nancy, they often say she was the doorway out. If you were disloyal or incompetent, she'd stand up to you and get rid of you. She was also the doorway in, as Michael Deaver learned, and others.
Oh, yeah. Well, Doug, I wanted to ask you about the Washington Post obit. We can put it up on the screen. I want to read some of this and get your reaction. It says, Nancy Reagan had an undeniable knack for inviting controversy. There were her extravagant spending habits at a time of double-digit unemployment, a chaotic relationship with her children and stepchildren that would rival a soap opera plot, and the jaw-dropping news that she had insisted the White House abide by her astrologer when planning the president's schedule.
Yeah, nice tribute.
Right.
Well, in a way, I'm glad that the Washington Post showed its true colors, because what's missing is how vilified they were. It's beyond description. There was no Fox News back then, and they were portrayed as warmongers and racists, and they were overwhelmingly elected by the American people. And when the Reagans were reelected in 1984, the newscasts, some of the most distinguished men in news journalism, were on TV and said, we lost another state, which was Ohio, going to Reagan. It was something to behold. But she won them over. She won them over.
So, Doug,
most of them.
That's with the benefit of being a historian like you. You never forget how far they come and where we used to be. You wrote a book called Reagan in Pursuit of Presidency, and you say your editor didn't want to, told you not to do it because?
My literary agent, Jed Mattis, I said, Jed, the Reagans are going to give me access. I only have 60 days to do this book. There is no book out on Reagan. None exists. He said, I'll get right back to you. He got back to me a couple days later. He said, nobody in New York City will publish this book. They don't think Reagan's going to make it through Iowa. And I said, I think he's neck and neck with George Bush in Iowa. They said, no, you don't understand what I mean. They don't think he's going to live past Iowa. Wow. So we had to go to New Jersey to get it published, and it sold 800,000 copies because nothing else was available.
Terrible book, good job. I'm sure it was much better than